Welcome to the Black Tech Meetup Game Changers event. I am Dr. Keisha Jones. I'm an assistant professor here at FIU in the College of Business. I'm in the Department of Global Leadership and Management, and my main area of research and one of the courses I teach here is around managing diversity. And so I'm really excited to be here to talk with two prominent alumni of FIU's College of Business who are not only doing great things in their careers, but they also started a nonprofit foundation that's also contributing to just the increase of representation in tech and professional careers within the Black community. And so I am honored to have Adam Cole and Rich Nelhouse here. So thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here to talk with our students and just give them information on what it takes to navigate that journey from being a student to a young professional. So really quickly, Adam Cole is currently the AVP in commercial banking at HSBC. He deals with managing client and prospect credit and lending needs for companies, who are bringing in revenue in the high millions. So I'm dealing with a lot of money there. He graduated from FIU in 2008 with his bachelor's in business administration and in 2010 with a master's in finance. Then we have Rich Nelhouse, who is the diversity recruiting manager at Facebook and the Black Employment Research Group lead for the New York office. He graduated from FIU in 2008 with a bachelor's of science in sports management. Together, they co-founded Black Tech Meetup, which is an organization which focuses on promoting career and entrepreneurial development, mentoring and educational growth in the Black community among people of color. And so we're here to talk about their journey, give them an opportunity to share valuable knowledge about just how to navigate your career. So this is going to be like a free-flowing conversation. I'm going to ask them questions that just allows them to share not only their journey, but their knowledge. I spoke with them a couple of weeks ago, and I know they have a lot of gems to drop on you all, not only with navigating their careers, but they're also entrepreneurs. They have lots of entrepreneurial experience. And I know that's something that our audience may be interested in as well. And so in order to have you all engaged in the conversation, we're going to try something new. So this is Black Tech Meetup. So let's get some tech in here. So there is a site called Slido, and on it, here, I'm putting a message in the chat for everyone. On it, you can use code 031183. So if you go to slido.com, use code 031183. This will allow you to pose questions. So as we're talking, and if you have questions for Rich or Adam, just put your question in, and you could also vote and like other people's questions. So see what other people are interested in, and then indicate what you like. And then that will allow us in the last 15 minutes of this conversation to be sure that we get to the questions that all of you are kind of have burning. So we want to make the most use of that time. And I'll be monitoring the Q&A or the questions that you're posing all throughout. But yeah, I think that'll be interesting. It'll be a nice little experiment, but also allow us to make a good use of time. Okay, so let's go ahead and start talking to our guests here. I think I've done enough talking for now. Okay, so again, welcome guys. I wanted to start out by just learning more about where you're from and how you got to FIU, since that was as where you all met, I'm assuming, and then where you all were able to kind of jump off. So yeah, whoever wants to go first, where are you from and how did you get to FIU?
I guess I'll start, Rich. I'm originally from Mount Vernon, New York. I moved to Florida and Miami specifically in 2001. And then I went to high school down there at Coral Gables and then Sunset, which is where I met Rich originally. And then how I got to FIU, which was funny. Rich actually convinced me to run track in high school. I know the college coach at the time was interested, and I was exploring my options with other colleges. And I remember calling Rich last minute to see if the coach still wanted me to come right before school was about to start. And then he ended up making us roommates. So that's kind of how the journey started from going to FIU and then running track in high school to running track at FIU.
Great. Okay, Rich, what about you? How did you get to FIU and where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from New York as well. So Adam and I are both from New York. I actually I got to Florida a little earlier. So I did like middle school and high school, grew up in like Kendall, Florida, ran track and field and played basketball up until I got a scholarship to go to FIU. It was between FSU and FIU. It was like a hard decision, but I decided I wanted to stay close to home just because I got more money to go to FIU and I thought it was a better school. So overall, that was my journey.
Great, great. Okay, so I did want to, speak to your time at FIU because we're talking to students now. What led you to choose your major, and how has it served you in your career, just in terms of what you've learned here, and then how you've been able to apply it?
Well, for me, I know, so my bachelor's in business administration. I knew early that I wanted to get into banking from business classes that I had when I was in high school at Sunset. And then, business administration is more general, so you kind of control, I guess, which path you want to go to. I wasn't completely, I didn't understand which part of banking I wanted to get into, so I had a more general focus there. So, and then running track as well. It kind of helped me stay focused in school. So, like if you didn't keep your grades up, you could get suspended or what have you. So I made sure that we made our hours in study hall, and took advantage of the resources that we're given at FIU.
Yeah. Yeah, and then for me, honestly, I think my goal was to become a lawyer. So I picked sports administration just because, I was an athlete and I really enjoyed sports. So I feel like worst case scenario, I can go into a field of like maybe becoming a coach at FIU. That was my thinking at the time because, I only knew Miami, but decided to just, stick it out. I actually took my LSAT, got into a couple law schools, but I was like, right at the height of the recession. So I'm sure you guys know 2008 was a rough year. So I decided to hold off on going to grad school and, pursuing being an entrepreneur. But yeah, that was my journey.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We've had a couple more people come in since we got started. So again, we're talking with Adam Cole and Rich Nelhouse. They're FIU alum who not only have prominent careers, but are also entrepreneurs and have started a nonprofit called Black Tech Meetup. And we'll talk more about that as well. You all can feel free to ask questions by going to slido.com. That's SLIDO.com. I put it in the chat. Use code 031183. And you can put your questions in, vote on the questions that others are asking, and then in the last 15 minutes, we'll do Q&A. So we want to make this interactive. So yeah, just go ahead and use that while we're talking. Okay, so I want to stay at FIU for a bit and your experiences there. So what are some experiences that you had at FIU that empowered you in pursuing your careers, as well as your entrepreneurial goals?
I think for me specifically, both Adam and I are both members of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and I was the president for like 2 years, and I was also like the vice president for the NPAC organization as well. So that kind of gave me an experience on like how to run a proper meeting and kind of refine my skills on like conducting, doing presentations. So that led me to talk to Adam about maybe we should start thinking about something outside of college. Like what can we do, because we're about to go into a recession. Is there anything that we can leverage from FIU that can kind of help us? So we put our heads together and decided to create a business plan. And there was like an entrepreneurship challenge that FIU was sponsoring that we decided to sign up for. And like the rest was history. I kind of let Adam take it from there.
Yeah, I was gonna say between track and that entrepreneurship challenge definitely was some of the defining moments. Well, firstly, just running track, just instilling some of those attributes in you, whether it's, being a team player, consistently working hard and becoming better at your craft, showing up every day, consistency, that regimen allowed me to, kind of break down the goals that I wanted to make into smaller pieces and attain them as I did in track. And then, when Rich and I put our heads together and, decided that we wanted to, enter this entrepreneurship challenge, it really put us through kind of like the same rigors of working out for track to, before that track meet, right? We had to, go through our presentations numerous times, which were looked at by the, by the panelists on the panel, the judges on the panel, that were kind of like, taking it and letting us know what areas we need to improve on, refining our pitch, going in and looking at the numbers and making sure that everything was tight, which really prepared us very well for when we left FIU and we actually pitched to, other, investors, in the real world. So not that FIU wasn't real, there was real cash prizes that were given. But for that being an actual first go round, you kind of felt more comfortable because it's school. You kind of feel like it's not as much pressure.
Yeah, sounds like a nice way to just dip your toes in and get used to putting yourself out there, putting your ideas out there, and just being able to get what you need in order to start your business and move forward. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So say some things about your career and kind of just your journey in general. Just like, how have things been going for you? Like what's led you in terms of where you started and where you are now. Just what experiences have you had or any advice you have or any stories or just things that stand out to you that you'd like to share or think our students could benefit from hearing from you?
Yeah, I think one thing that still stands out is going back to how we got to where we are today, right? Our story is pretty interesting because, in 2008, while we're preparing for our finals, we're studying in the library. I'm never going to forget, I think we're on the 7th floor, probably the quiet library. And I came across an entrepreneurship magazine and I started looking at all these tech companies that were booming. And this kind of spurred the idea on okay, what are we going to do going into recession? If we're not going to find a job, what kind of business is going to probably be recession proof? We thought beauty and we thought alcohol. But the reason why is because we're no matter what, people are going to drink if they're happy or sad. So we got into marketing for nightclubs in South Beach, which we catered to the affluent African-American community, which we knew very well. And we leveraged the fact that, we made great relationships with a lot of athletes that played football at FIU and other schools that we competed against. And a lot of our friends have made it to the NFL. Some of them made it to the NBA. So we're you know what, we're just going to invite them to our events while we're continue to figure things out. Luckily for us, it worked out to where we were the first to market in this industry. We made enough money to sustain ourselves for 5 years. So we had our own business. And then while doing that, we came up with an idea on, okay, let's go ahead and try to see how we can capitalize off of this. So we created a platform where we were staffing bars and restaurants for people that were looking to get jobs in the service industry, which kind of helped us, we leveraged our experience from FIU. So we worked on another pitch, we raised capital, and then we ended up moving to New York City. And the good thing is, our goal was to get out of Florida to begin with, but we enjoyed the ride while being there. And we both went to New York. We tried to promote our brand, but we had a lot of roadblocks and, we needed to get real jobs at the point. So we kind of had to start from scratch, which was crazy because, we knew where we wanted to go, but we didn't know how we were going to get there. So essentially I fell into recruiting because we were staffing. So I was you know what, let me try to learn as much about the industry as possible. So I went to a staffing agency, learned as much as I could. I made so much money for myself at the time because I was okay, this is great. I'm making good money. So I'm I'm going to wait. We're going to push this app away for a while and just focus on their career. And kind of led me to what I'm doing now, right? So I've been at Facebook for almost 5 years now. What I focus on is basically trying to help people that was myself that was trying to, get to a certain place, but didn't kind of have the direction. So help people remove roadblocks. So I specialize in helping diverse candidates get jobs at Facebook, whether they're prepared or whether they're not, and kind of see where they are and help make that assessment, which kind of led us to creating Black Tech Meetup, because I realized in the tech space, it's kind of if you think about D&I, it's top of mind for a lot of companies right now. And one thing in particular is that a lot of our people, I talked about, Black and Latinx, are not aware on what goes inside if they haven't been in there. So what we want to do is kind of educate our people, because it's if a Facebook or Google reaches out to you to apply for a role, are you aware on what you should be, asking for when it comes to compensation? Do you know what the technical interviews will look like? So what we want to do is kind of help educate the community and help bridge the gap. So long-winded, but I mean, that's kind of how we got to this point.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, and we'll circle back to that too in terms of talking about what you all are offering with Black Tech Meetup. But yeah, that's a great story. Adam, what about you? Anything you want to share from your perspective?
Yeah. So I mean, just taking a little step back. So when the recession hit, of course, I was trying to get into banking, and that didn't pan out. It was the housing market crisis, and then it kind of trickled down to banks with all the mortgage-backed securities, and everything blew up. So for me initially, I wanted to get a job and start making money ASAP. I was tired, I wanted to be able to support myself. So I had to kind of humble myself, and I took a role at Hollister, which right there, International Mall. I was a stock manager, and the reason I mentioned that is because even though I wanted to get into banking, there weren't at that time there weren't too many jobs available. But I feel like even humbling myself, I didn't want to do that job, but it was a managerial position, which is a transferable experience to most any job, right? I managed over 30 employees while I was there. I did that for about a year, a little over a year, and then I went back to grad school at FIU to kind of wait this out, hopefully wait out the recession. So I got my master's in finance to take a more focused area within finance in general, and in hopes of getting a banking job. Rich and I, continued to South Beach. We started, I like I said, I left Hollister. I did the, promotions full time on South Beach, and then we moved to New York. And there, it was still tough trying to get in. It was 2013, and finally got in. And it was actually supposed to be a 90-day contract. It wasn't temp to perm or anything. So when I got my opportunity at HSBC, within the first month of being there, I was offered, I was asked by my manager, how would you like to work here full time? And, being that I was only supposed to be there for 90 days. I was thrilled. So I took the opportunity and began working at HSBC full time. That's by that September. I started working about April. But again, there I had to humble myself when I moved to New York, because I'm like, okay, you leave college, you get your bachelor's, you go back to college, you get your master's, and you think you come out and you're gonna be making all this money from the get, and it's not necessarily like that. When I got hired as a contractor, I was only making 20 an hour, for that position. It was a very entry level position, and then of course that changed once I got hired full time. And then again, same thing with Rich. I began, getting promotions so quickly that I had no clue that the earnings potential was like this, at the bank. So focused a little bit more on the career, but at the same time, throughout everything, I kind of kept the focus on how can what I'm doing now assist me on my either my side business or the business that I would like to build. So whether that's from a managerial perspective at Hollister, whether that's from going into banking, and I didn't necessarily land in the position that I wanted to land into, but I need the experience first so that I can get to where I wanted to get, which is where I'm now as a associate vice president in commercial bank, and now that's helping me understand business in general, right? Your P&L, your balance sheets, how to get lending from big financial institutions, which I can then take and bring back to my business and my friends. So that's kind of like my journey and how I got from FIU to where I am now.
Okay, great. Thanks again. Sounds like across like what both of you all are saying in terms of just the journey you've been on, it's involved leveraging relationships and taking advantage of opportunities, and keeping your eye out for new opportunities, as well as staying humble, like kind of doing what you have to do, and just saying like, okay, maybe this isn't what I want, but I'm going to do this because it may serve me in the future, and it's going to give me the experience I need in order to get where I want, which is also being strategic. So
right.
Yeah, no, I think this is very important to talk about. Were you going to say something, Adam?
No, I was just agreeing with you, sorry.
Okay, yeah, cool. For those of you that are just joining, we are taking questions using Slido. I'm going to put the information in the chat again. And I see that we already have like lots of questions coming in, so I'm excited to get to those. As things come up as we're talking, be sure to put your questions in and we will get to them. Okay, so kind of wondering where to go from here. I think I'll go back to Black Tech Meetup. How about just speaking to those who want to start a business? Do you have thoughts on like if you want to start a business, is it better to focus 100% of your time on the business and start a career, or is it better to like start your career and have your business on the side? Or like, what are the pros and cons of, just putting yourself 100% into the business, or just trying to balance it, balance both of them?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question because it's going to be different for everybody. Well, I would say I guess I go into the pros and cons. Starting out a business is really tough. You're not gonna, unless you have an amazing idea, you're not gonna, become profitable right off the bat. You may not get, investment right off the bat. So you got to put in, the work on your own. And sometimes, when you're using your resources and you're putting in that work, you might not be able to get the income that you want. So in those scenarios, I would suggest, start your career. And especially if it's a career in something like let's say, for example, you're creating a fintech app, maybe going to a bank, while you can have a job, getting a consistent paycheck and helping you pay for that fintech app. One allows you to keep a bigger portion of your business because you won't necessarily need to look for outside funding, from the beginning. And two, it gives you a little bit more relevance as a founder because you came from a financial institution. People are more likely to think, oh, that guy's credible, or that woman is credible because, they've worked at a financial institution in a specific area, what have you. So I think that's some of the pros and cons. But then again, there's those ideas that, that just take off, skyrocket from the beginning. In those cases, I would suggest, leveraging your network for sure. Making sure you refine your pitch and getting in the room with those entrepreneurs and those investors to pitch your idea to get the capital. However, just make sure you have a plan of how you're going to get from point A to point B. Whether that's from product development or selling more products or enhancing it or advertisement. You have to make sure you understand the ins and outs and what it's going to take to get your product or your service to the next level.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, I think just being prepared to kind of setting expectations. There's going to be highs and lows when starting a business, right? And I think just understanding that you're not going to hit a home run every day. There's days are going to be good, days are going to be they're going to suck, right? But just kind of like learning how to fail fast and making iterations as you go. One thing in particular, whether you're starting an app, I think just building like a minimal viable product, something where you don't really have to invest a lot of money, just building something that can work and testing it out, right? Doing your research before doing a nosedive, right? I think that's something that Adam and I had to learn early on. We were trying to build like a big ship instead of just kind of building out this little small components just to get it running first, to see what works and kind of iterate as we go. So like there's always going to be lessons learned. And I think it's always better to kind of learn from other people as well, instead of making your own mistakes. And to another point that Adam made, which I like, is if you are gonna work, or like whether it's fintech or tech in general, why not work at a tech company and understand the inner workings of building out an app, working with a large team, understand how to build it at scale, and then start doing it on the side. Because at Facebook, we love people that come from like an entrepreneurship background because they have all the resources they need now to do the things they couldn't do when they had their startup. And then they kind of take all the knowledge that they have and go back and do it the right way, right? So like one thing my grandfather always told me, if you're gonna, start a business, try using someone else's money first before using your own. So I think that's important to kind of like leverage the company that you're working at. If they foster that entrepreneurship mindset, why not do it there? And then when you're ready to go, you can take off from there. So.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's interesting. Seems like you could do research on the company culture just to get a sense for like, is this a place that's going to support me as an entrepreneur or just values that experience or that mindset, and then go after jobs in that area. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess could also lead to just a question around like just any general advice you have in getting jobs, whether in tech or in finance, but any advice you have just for people coming out of school, or even things students could do while they're in school in order to prepare. Any thoughts you all have on that?
Most definitely.
Okay. Oh, you can take that.
I just sorry, I just wanted to say that I think one thing I wish I took more advantage of was the resources on campus with internships. I think the earlier the better, whether you're sophomore or junior or senior. If you can try and get into an internship, with whatever field that you're trying to get into. One, to explore whether you really like it or not, because you might get into it and not like it. And two, you already start building rapport with future people in that industry, whether you end up going to work with that company or another company that may be a competitor, or I think using those resources and trying to get in early makes it a lot easier. Take your resumes and interview seriously. Refine it. Don't be afraid to speak to recruiters like Rich, because they are there to help you. I know I spoke to a number of recruiters when I went to New York. They helped refine my resume. They helped me with my my interview, which is essentially a pitch of yourself. Why would this company want to hire me? So you're selling yourself. And don't be afraid to practice it. Record yourself, or have a friend interview you. Just practice so that you're as on point as possible.
So that's a great example. I was going to say that, but now I have to find another way. And I think another thing is just networking, right? There's a career fairs. I think FIU had a ton of career fairs. I have friends that come to that work at different companies, and they're constantly going to universities to pitch their companies. So just being ready to knowing when those are happening and being there, and just like taking up as much information as possible to see if there's opportunity, ask a lot of questions about the company, especially people that graduate from FIU. Get their contact information, follow them on LinkedIn, and start building that rapport, because like your network is your net worth. You need to start building your network while you're in college, because if you're not an athlete, it's fine. If you're not a part of an organization, it's fine. You can still be friends with these people, and they have connections as well. So like start building that, start thinking about how can you make meaningful connections while you're in school. One thing too that's important, so if you're in tech, I was going to refer to that. There's like Grace Hopper, right, which is like a tech conference for women in tech. We have Afro Tech, which is built out for African Americans and other people of color that are interested in tech. So like try to figure out how can you get into those conferences. They have student discounts if you don't have the money, and there's also opportunities where we can get scholarships where they can help pay for you to go there. And like just put yourself out there is important. And of course internships are amazing, but if aside from that, is just being around other people in that space and networking with them, and then they can keep you top of mind. So if someone's in the same space, they're ahead of you, it's totally fine. Just space and opportunity is all you really need, so just being present is all you really need.
Okay. Yeah. What was the name of the first one? You said Afrotech for the first one?
Grace Hopper. Grace Hopper.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They do it. They fluctuate between Texas and Orlando every other year. They switch it off, but because of the pandemic, they did it virtually. But highly recommend. If any women that are in tech that are looking to get more exposure, highly looking up Grace Hopper and trying to sign up for the conference.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So just the importance of the network is key. As well as getting just comfort with interacting with people, with selling yourself, putting yourself out there, interviewing. Yeah, so it sounds like there's lots of things students can do to prepare, just to, be at a point where once they're in the right time, they can take advantage of the opportunity. Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, we'll definitely be talking for another 10 or 15 minutes before we get to Q&A. So please keep the questions coming in. I'll put the information on how to do so. And then, just keep the questions coming in. So I want to talk about Black Tech Meetup now. Speaking of like networking and just getting resources and having access to resources. You said a bit about why you started it or why you thought it was important. If there's anything more you want to share there, feel free to do so, as well as what the general goals of Black Tech Meetup are.
I guess I can talk about how we started, and I guess Adam can kind of go into the goal aspect of it. So when I decided to join Facebook in 2016, I was a little hesitant too, just because of like the racial reckoning that happened with Eric Gardner. And I just wanted to be in a place where I kind of felt supported. And luckily for me, there was a lot of support there at the company at the time. And one thing that I wanted to do is what I didn't notice when I was on this agency side, I didn't see a lot of people of color in leadership positions in tech. And when I got to Facebook, they were like, look, whatever it is you want to do, we'll be supportive of. And my goal was to kind of bring in more Black and Latinx people to the company in the tech space. And they gave me the green light. They're like, you can do whatever you want. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. And I started seeing people that are interviewing, and a lot of them weren't prepared. They weren't doing well. They were getting dinged and had to wait a whole year to interview again. But I'm like, what would have happened if they had a mentor, somebody that kind of talked to them, coached them before they interviewed, And I kept telling this to Adam. I'm like, I'm seeing this in real time. I'm like, there's something that we could possibly do. And I noticed the company, at the time, Facebook is like, yeah, we work with a lot of external organizations to kind of help build up our top of funnel, to bring more candidates, to kind of help educate the community. And I started like a light bulb clicked. I'm like, well, Adam and I, we used to do events where, we're entrepreneurs. Like, why not create like a nonprofit and kind of help educate the community? So we did like a rough event where we wanted to demystify what's like working in tech. So we reached out to our network of like, I think it was like 600 people in New York City. And I brought in colleagues from Facebook, from marketing, sales, and engineering. And then I brought in a friend from Twitter, and he brought his colleagues, and we did like a Q&A, and we kind of did like a demystified talk on like, okay, what is like working in tech for people that came from different backgrounds. And essentially, like, we saw a lot of interest there. We casted a wide net. A lot of people reached out to us, and we ended up hiring 5 people from that particular event because we were able, and we didn't have a goal. We just kind of opened it up there to see, if there's an opportunity to kind of help people. And that's when we decided to kind of start, honing in and building out this nonprofit and getting the 501c3. I don't know, Adam, if you want to kind of take over from like how we evolved from there.
Yeah, and it's very similar in the finance industry as well. Even though we do focus on tech, kind of breaking in sometimes is hard, especially one, if you didn't have the internship, which is a traditional route into getting financing. But, with the tech space, it's kind of, and especially, when we first started in our careers, it was definitely more of a mystery to, the Black community. And that's why we started off with the demystifying tech and industry in general. But we created the Black Tech Meetup to kind of provide resources, whether it's for networking. So we have networking opportunities where you can, have conversations with other people and other Blacks in tech, education, career development, and entrepreneurship development, right? So we do that through our panel discussions. A lot of our networking events were in person, so we kind of moved that to virtual because of COVID, of course. And then which allowed people to kind of speak with each other, as you mentioned earlier, Keisha, about kind of understanding the corporate culture of the different places that you're working, and hey, maybe there's other opportunities out there you get to learn from, whether you're at Twitter, whether you're at Facebook, or whichever companies you are. We have friends at Snapchat, and maybe they feel like there's a better fit at another company. And that kind of helps your career as well, because a lot of times you make the jump, you get a little bump in your career, whether to the next level. So some of our other panels included kind of like more from the entrepreneurship side, where we have a series where it's kind of like building your product and raising capital. And so we get everybody in the room, from engineer to investor. We like to partner with Harlem Capital, one of the few Black-owned venture capital firms out there, and an entrepreneur. And then we just kind of have a discussion with how you build a product that's going to sell, or that's going to spark the interest of a venture capital firm. The venture capital firm, of course, is going to tell the audience what they're looking for, right? And not all venture capital firms are the same. They have very specific guidelines that they adhere to. If you, again, going back to my fintech example, this particular VC might not, invest in fintech, so that's not going to be the VC for you. So finding the right fit for your product is very important. And then just providing those resources that we typically do not have readily available to us is the main goal for Black Tech Meetup. Just in, as we discussed in our careers, it was hard enough just finding, we didn't know Harlem Capital at the time, so finding VCs or, getting to, even pitch our ideas. I guess quick story, one of our friends from high school was on Shark Tank. And he told us he was coming to Damon John was coming in town and he wanted to go out. So Rich and I took him out. We met Damon John, and we pitched him the idea that night. And then he literally told us, like, if you guys, well, we didn't actually talk business in the club that night, but he said, if you guys are serious, fly to New York and let's have a meeting. So drawing from the experience that we had in the entrepreneurship challenge at FIU, we put together our pitch for the idea. We refined it. We went through our financials, and at the time, we were sharing the office with Madison Financial, which was Young Money Cash Money's money manager at the time. They were, they did all their accounting and everything. And so we used Horace Madison, who was the CEO of that company, to kind of, hear our pitch before we go to Damon John. And then, we gave him the pitch, and before we even got on the plane to head to New York to pitch, he invested in our company. He wanted a percentage before we even, talked to Damon John. So now that was us utilizing our network and kind of taking advantage of what we had right in that area. But what Black Tech Meetup is doing, we're trying to bring all that to one place. We're trying to create an ecosystem where, you have access to VCs, angel investors, you have access to people, entrepreneurs that can mentor. It's not just on the entrepreneurial side, but if you just want to advance in your career, mentors that are in higher levels at these tech firms like Google, Facebook, Apple,
Netflix.
Netflix. Yeah, we have a bunch of different members of our team that are in the high levels at those tech firms that can advise and kind of guide the younger talent on how to advance their career. So that's kind of what we're building here at Black Tech Meetup. We've been around for 3 years, so we're still in early stages, but we're already making some big moves.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah, I love the idea of just demystifying all of these different areas, whether it's like getting like a high level job at a tech company, or just like how to get money to fund your business. Because I think that can stop a lot of people from pursuing, their goals or their dreams if they're not sure how to go about it. So I think it's really great that you're trying to make all this accessible and easier, and share your networks in order to help people be able to do that. And it sounds too like you're talking about you're in situations where you were ready, you were able to pitch. It sounds like you found out like within a short period of time, like, oh, I can meet with Damon John, or I can meet with this other person and like get money. So it's like, I think organizations like Black Tech Meetup, Black Tech Meetup, Black Tech does matter. Black Tech Meetup. I think it's helpful, I think, to prepare people for when those opportunities come up, because you want to be ready. You want to be able to, just take advantage of opportunities. So, no, I think this is awesome. So I think I'm going to start the Q&A just a little earlier, just because we have some questions coming in, and I have some wrap-up questions I could do at the end, but just to make sure that everyone who's been here listening to you all and, wondering about things, want to make sure the questions get addressed. So I'll put the information on how to do it, slido.com, use code 031183 to ask questions if you have more, but we'll go ahead and get started. Well, one question I was going to ask anyway, that a lot of people have voted for is how can we get involved with Black Tech Meetup? So, students here, how can they get involved?
So, okay, so we can go to our website, and actually, Rich, I don't know if you want to, you can provide that in chat. We're updating it now. We're actually, in the next few days, we should have a form available to sign up. We're about to roll out our mentorship program as well. And so you'll be able to, sign up directly on the website, and then also, don't be afraid to reach out to either Rich or I through LinkedIn. You can email us. Happy to be involved, and to get involved and have a chat. If you want to get involved on, with Black Tech Meetup, or, or just participate, we're open to all of the above.
Yeah, so I just posted a link to our mentorship program. We actually just opened up enrollment this week, so you guys feel free to go ahead and then click that link. And for those who are not interested in mentorship and just want to reach out to us directly just to see if you want to help out, we have a contact form on our website, so you can reach out to us directly. And Keisha, are they going to be sharing our emails with everyone?
It's up to you. Afterwards, we could, put together something that we could send out as a follow-up. But I do know that on the flyer, there's a link to your bios and link to your LinkedIn profiles already. So that information is out there. But we could also make it available.
All right, perfect. Yeah. So definitely can reach out to us via LinkedIn. We'd be more than happy to, especially anyone from FIU, we'd love to help out. Even if we don't have the answers, we'd help out there. So like we know how tough it was. And the thing is, one thing that I tell people is like, you know, I'm always going to be available to help people, especially if I offer it. It's up to you to do something with it, right? For everyone that's here right now that attended, I mean, this is the first step. Is like you know, there's a lot going on at FIU, and the fact that you made time to do this for yourself, that's really important. And you continue to start doing that, and like call people out on their stuff. If someone says, hey, reach out to me, reach out to them, see what happens, and don't be afraid. You know, even if you're scared, just say hey, just say a simple hi, you know, and like, oh, would you be open to having like a coffee or whatever, and seeing what their person would say. But like Adam and I are strong components of that, just because we got here because we were always available to like, you know, meet people, and we always pick their brains. You know, so you never know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you all, you know, making yourselves available to the students like this. So that's so important. I can think of like so many times where like I wish I followed up with someone. I'm like, oh yeah, I should talk to that person. Or when I did, even when I was scared, it was a great conversation. People like helping each other. So yeah, I think it's always worth the risk to do that. So yeah, it's important to encourage that. Okay, so this is a question for Rich. As a tech recruiter, what do you look for in a candidate's profile?
I mean, I think this is like the basics when it comes to looking for Facebook. You know, you think about it, it's a full-time role, right? So you want to see some type of like consistency in someone's background, right? Okay, were you at a job for 3 months, or were you there for a year? And like, what have you done in that particular role? So just to let you guys know, a recruiter, they spend 6 seconds looking at a resume before they dive deep. So in 6 seconds, I'm scanning. I'm like, okay, how, like, is there any gaps in the resume? Okay, where you like, did you take like 4 months off? Why was that? You know, did you, and if it's for tech, did you go to a college? Do you have like a comp sci degree? So it all depends on like, what is it that, you know, I'm looking for. But in general, I just want to see some consistency in your resume. Like, okay, have you worked out of companies for more than a year? Are you bouncing around? If so, like, you know, what's the reason for that? You know, but typically I just want to see some consistency just to kind of, before I do a deeper dive. Like I said, 6 seconds is all we take just to look at a resume. I don't care about the cover letter. All I care about is like, okay, did you work at credible companies? And do you have enough experience that we're looking for? But again, that's like the basics for looking at a resume.
Okay. Do you feel like if there is something that needs to be explained in the resume, the cover letter is a place to do it?
I mean, to be honest with you, some people may look at cover letters. I generally, I mean, look, I'm not trying to, I know you probably have professors right now working on your cover letter. Just be honest with you, like, time is of the essence. So like, I think your LinkedIn profile is just as important. So I think if your resume, if you have a resume, make sure your LinkedIn profile speaks to it as well, because some recruiters leverage LinkedIn just to reach out to candidates. So I think like your LinkedIn profile is just as important as your resume. So making sure that it's up to date, making sure you have enough context on what you have done in your current role, even if you're not looking, but keeping that updated is very important, right? And making sure, like, you know, the gaps are filled in. So like, let's say you had somebody in the family, you know, was sick. Make sure you kind of leverage, okay, for the last 4 months, I was taking care of my mom. I was, you know, so making sure you put that on there, because that matters, right? Because a recruiter is going to see like, wow, you haven't worked in like 7 months and you want to apply for a job. Like, why would we hire you? You know, so start thinking about those type of things.
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Okay, let's go to the next one. I'm just looking at my phone. It's easier to do it this way. Okay. It feels overwhelming trying to figure out where to join extracurriculars, finding the right ones. What advice do you have for finding a club or group or fraternity, sorority?
That is a good question. Well, for me, well, Rich is actually the chartering line for Kappa Alpha Psi at FIU, and then I was the first line, so I came after Rich. But even before, so Rich is my best friend, you know, since high school. And, you know, even when he came to me and asked me, do I want to join the fraternity, I denied at first because I didn't know anything about them coming into college. So I had to do my own research. And I think you start there, right? You see what's on campus, you know, see what speaks to you most. You know, Kappa Alpha Psi spoke to me most personally, even after doing all my research. And then I joined. I also joined BSU. And you know, a couple of the other organizations but it all depends on your workload and how busy you are, right? Because I also ran track, so I couldn't join everything, even though I did like to be involved. It can be overwhelming because place like FIU, they have a lot of programs, a lot of resources. But I'll narrow it down. Think about what you like best, where you wouldn't mind devoting some free time to, or even if it's just showing up to events to support, you could just start there, easy. I know at work, personally, I joined volunteer programs, so I like to do things like, JA for a day, which is, I go into schools and, teach like a third grade class for like a day, or or I help the food bank, in LA and in New York, and and I do things like that because for me it's not like a dedicated thing where I have to consistently come to, but I can go to the events and help out when they have them. So I sign up and I go. It all depends on how busy you are, what your passions are, and how you like to help, or how you like to, whether it's help other people or help yourself.
Yeah, and to Adam's point, right? Like if you don't know anything about like organizations, whether it's like fraternity, sorority, just go to interest meetings. They have interest meetings. I don't know, for like FIU, we didn't do it, but they had rush week too. So like just gotta go and talk to people and do your research. And if there's anyone that you look up to, like any celebrities, there's people like that. Reverse engineer, like John Singleton was somebody that who I really admire as a kid, and he was a Kappa. And there was people like Cedric the Entertainer. So there were like people that I looked up to, and I'm like, okay, what did they do and how did they get there? And I'm like, oh wow, they're all part of this organization. So that kind of led me down a rabbit hole, which led me to this position, led me to this organization. And another thing to think of is like, there's other opportunities. Like if you're a Caribbean, there's like CSA, like there's opportunities where you can kind of just be in, like, community is everything. I think just, having your classmates is great, but it could be a club where you just want to go play chess. It doesn't matter. It's just like start building your network of people that you wouldn't have met with if you didn't join that organization. So it's okay if it's not something that's business related, if it's not, but any social clubs that are there that speaks to you, that pique your interest, highly recommend joining, and then just go from there. And then the people that you're going to meet in college are probably people you're going to know for the rest of your life, to be honest with you. Like the connections that I've made in college are a lot stronger than the ones I had in high school, just to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Okay. I'm just moving here since we're running low on time. I want to get to all of them. Okay, here's another one. Did you deal with entrepreneurial disappointments, and how did you overcome them? Any suggestions for someone going through a business downturn?
I mean, we've dealt with a lot of that. It can be, it can be depressing at times, but you kind of got to push through. Same thing like with my, I would say compared to my first year running track, I didn't, I went from high school where I was, killing it. I was, topping the state, to kind of coming to college and it leveled the playing field, right? And you just got to keep working at it. You're gonna, as Rich mentioned earlier, you're gonna go through your downturns, but you got to ride those out the same way as you ride the highs. Like they're not all, there's gonna be peak and valleys, and no matter what. So you got to just keep pushing through, and don't be afraid to like refine what you're doing, because what Rich and I are doing now is far from what we originally started with at FIU. You got to evolve, you got to adapt. Look at where you might be, making mistakes, and if you need to have somebody take another look because maybe you're too close to it, and have somebody maybe take a step back and look at it from a higher level, you might be off trend. You might be doing something that's not really working anymore right at this point, especially with the in the age that we're in now with apps like. Listen, the first iPhone came out right when we were graduating, right? I'm kind of dating myself. So, but after that, it's like technology evolved so quickly from the first iPhone to what we're on now, Android, everything is changing so fast. You have to be able to adapt, even within, your failures or downturns. Just keep an eye open and keep pushing.
Yeah, and to your point, I just think being open to feedback, constructive criticism is important, right? Like feedback's a gift. Like when you're when you're in a rut, you want to kind of get feedback from either your customers if you're building out a product for that, or just your people that you trust, like your advisory board, right? Like if it's your parents, it's your significant other. Like be open to kind of hearing their feedback, even if you don't agree with it. Still try to see where they're coming from, and kind of do some A/B testing and start making changes as you go. Because you're not gonna have all the answers, but there's gonna be people that you that really care about you, that will give you the constructive criticism. Like Adam and I, we play devil's advocate all the time. I'll come up with an idea just because he's my best friend. He would like shut it down and be like, no, this is what I think about it, and here's why. And that's the reason why we're so close, is because we play devil's advocate with one another. And I think it's finding someone that's going to give you that hard truth and being open to it and being excited that, okay, wow, somebody cares enough to tell me something that I need to hear, but it makes me feel weird. So it's okay to be open. Like, that's the hardest part about just being an adult, period. Okay, I'm hearing something that I don't really like, but I think it's important because maybe this is something that's going to probably change everything. So just being open and adaptability is key, right? Like, there's trends are going to be changing. So like, you may be working on something where another company is probably two steps ahead of you. So like, how can you kind of figure out what works for you and stay ahead of the curve? So.
Yeah. Any way to grow, you have that growth. Okay, do either of you have suggested courses, books, material, etc., for professional development, growth, entrepreneurship? So I guess any like of your favorite books or anything that you would share or want to share?
Honestly, my favorite place is YouTube. Like, if I don't know something, or if I want to get more familiarize myself with a particular subject, I will look it up. And if they suggest books too, I'd read it. But a lot of times I get, and Rich could attest to this, the best experience is actually going through it. Because I've read a lot of the books at FIU and like 4-Hour Work Week, and a few different entrepreneurial books, and not everything is gonna, you're not gonna have all the answers in one book. And I know it's probably not a response that is really helpful, but you gotta, it's really trial and error. You gotta keep learn the basics, but trial and error, going through the experience and of business in general, it for me has been key.
Yeah, and to me, I've read a lot of books, right? One book in particular that still stood out to me was Range by David Epstein. It's an interesting book because a lot of people think you need to be a specialist in order to thrive in anything, and this book kind of talks about what being a generalist can kind of help you, because you're like your scope is a little different because you've done so many things and you are able to navigate and move quickly. So like, I think that book was a really guiding point for me. But what, to Adam's point, you don't want to get caught up in analysis paralysis, right? There's so many books out there, but if you don't put things into action, what's the point, right? Like, you don't need to go ahead and read every single book in order to move forward. I think you use the book for what it is, maybe some inspiration, like a kick in the butt. And like Adam said, I love YouTube, right? So there's a lot of stuff that's on there as well. But again, I try not to get caught up in just too much information. Try to see, okay, how can I start getting going, right? Motion is better than just sitting there and just like taking up all this information. Like, you learn how to fail fast. Like, that's like the whole step, there's so much experience by just going out there and doing the work versus just sitting there and reading every book under the sun, because like, you may just get paralyzed and like, well, everything needs to be perfect in order for me to execute, which is not the case, right? I mean, you're helping this person that wrote the book because they're making the money, that business is working, right? So I think you need to figure out how can you help yourself,
Yeah, just kind of take what you need, and then keep it moving. Okay, another question: advice for taking a non-traditional career turn, like getting into an industry that you didn't study for. Any thoughts there?
Yeah. Again, kind of, I mentioned a little bit earlier in the discussion was like, so when I worked at Hollister, that was definitely, it's not like you need to really study for that, but even in non-traditional, as I feel like, as long as it's an ends to a mean, right? This could be a stepping stone for you to get to your goal. So even if it's non-traditional, there has to be some type of duties or responsibilities that you can, transfer over to where you ultimately want to get to. And for me, Hollister was that, which is the managerial experience. Being in a very intense environment, where like the store that we worked at was like the third biggest store by volume in the country. So every day was chaotic. And so being able to, manage 30 plus people on a daily basis and meet the goals for the day was something that allowed me to pass along those skills to my future roles that I'm in now. So for non-traditional jobs, I would while you're trying to figure out whether you want to take it or not, I would think about, how is it going to help you for your future? outside of the monetary aspect.
Like the transferable skills that
Exactly.
are present across everything. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Rich?
No, second that, right? I mean, you even said it, Keisha. That's exactly just figuring out which skills are transferable that's going to get you there, right? I think like the experience working as a manager at a retail store, especially like at Abercrombie & Fitch, it was difficult, but end of the day, like it's prepared Adam and I for what we're doing today, you know, because we've been through the fire. And granted, this is not something that we thought we were going to be doing, but it helped us manage our expectations, kind of help manage people, and kind of dealing with just working within chaos, you know? So highly recommend if you are going into a place that's not traditional, think about how can it benefit you in the next step. Just being strategic on like, okay, what am I going to learn from this particular role? This is going to prepare me for the next level. Even if it's not compensation, if you're not getting paid what you want, think about it as a paid internship. You're getting paid to learn, you know, so that way your mindset, that's most important. Just kind of thinking, okay, I'm doing this for a greater reason. I'm not doing this just to make ends meet. I'm looking for this is like, it's going to take me to where I want to go moving forward. So,
and I also want to add, it's, I don't know if it's just ironic, but as much as I did not want to work at Hollister, like now at the bank, I cover retail and apparel. So it's like I kind of came full circle, and I'm right back to you know covering these companies.
And you never know what's going to help you.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Let's see. There's a question about the importance of networking from an entrepreneurial perspective in college. I think you all kind of touched on that. Like networking is key for your career and for building a business. There's a couple questions about Black Tech Meetup, just how to get in touch. So there's the link that's in the chat. And there's another question about the recording being available. So I'm sure there'll be like some follow-up and some other things we can do to pass on information with the recording and with for Rich and Adam. There's a question about the future goals for Black Tech Meetup. So what goals do you have? What steps did you guys take as far? Okay, you talked about this. So starting a nonprofit organization in the tech industry, you went into that, but any future goals you want to share?
It's again to my point. I would honestly, personally, I would like to see that dollar circulate within our community a little bit more, even if it's by an additional hour, whatever it is. We have as in the Black community, we have such high purchasing power and such a lack of resources to put our capital to work in a way that's going to increase the our wealth. And that's what we're trying to do. Like, with everything going on for Eric Gardner, you probably seeing news articles every day about closing the wealth gap, programs being started, and like I'm living through it, Rich is living through it. We are a generation that are trying to break a curse from the prior generation, our parents, where we won't be left assets, when they pass. We're trying to figure this out. We're actually our financials and our wealth is flowing backwards because we're helping them when it should be flowing forwards to help our offspring and our children, our future children and the future generations. So the ultimate goal is to, by encouraging more Blacks to be in tech, by promoting career development, entrepreneur development, and putting all these people in a room where it's not just entrepreneurs and the people that might invest in those entrepreneurs, but you also have the people that might be working for you there too. Like that engineer that was working at Facebook might want to come work at your startup because there's the prospect of having shares plus a nice salary, and then when there's an exit, you IPO, you sell the company, you get a nice windfall of cash, what we call in the bank a liquidity event, where you can put that down on a house. And if anybody is looking in the housing market right now, you're gonna probably have to be a millionaire just to even buy a house in 10 to 15 years from now. So we're really trying to create an ecosystem where there's resources, where there's people that's willing to help each other, and that we can push this generation, the next generation in our community forward, is the ultimate goal that I would like to see personally.
Anything you want to add, Rich? And we're kind of wrapping up here. So.
Yeah, no, well said, Adam. I mean, Adam and I, he speaks for the both of us on that one. That was great.
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, we're out of time, but I want to thank you both so much. Everyone, I guess you can't hear a clap, but do like an e-clap for Adam Cole and Rich Nailhouse, two FIU College of Business alums who are giving back. sharing their wisdom. And also they've started an organization. So check out the website, it's in the chat, blacktechmeetup.org. Okay. And again, we could follow up with some information. You can check out their website, but some, information on this recording and other ways to get in touch and get involved. So thank you all again. I know the students appreciated it. I think this was great. So good luck to you. It was great meeting you, just me personally, just hearing about your success. So I wish you the best of luck with what you're doing and with your organization.
Thank you, Keisha. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you all for attending, and don't be afraid to reach out.
Great. Yeah. Use the network. Don't be afraid.
Exactly.
Network is your net worth.
Perfectly said.
Great. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Up here.
Bye.
All right.